Good evening. Whoa, whoa, shit. Oh, no, it's just chaos right out the back.
Oh,
Oh,
got
what the
loose.
hell? Oh,
Ah,
goodness gracious. Welcome. Oh, yeah, all stressed, yeah, getting on the road here. All right, this is the After Hours show with the Autonomous Collective. I'm Joe in Norway for the time being, and I'm joined by Ann Lee, a retired college professor and community member at the Daily Coast. She's a member of the National Council of Independent Scholars and is a contributor to the book, The Political Economy of Art, Making the Nation of Culture. Welcome, Ann. Hey.
hey, Joe.
Oh,
It's cold out there.
oh, it is indeed. So cold. I don't know if anybody remembers from a few weeks ago our my brand new shiny carbon steel walk that was perfectly sized to my weakening wrists. Uh, we properly seasoned it and got a nice patina on it, as you can see. The only issue is I left it out in the shed where my walk burner is, and it's the middle of winter. It is so much moisture that even if you store it normally, you want to make sure that you coat it with oil. Uh, you dry it, heat it after you wash it, and make sure that the metal is thoroughly dry. Otherwise, it can very quickly rust up like this. So
Yeah. Well,
we're yep,
a little iron in your diet there.
that's true. So I'm gonna scrub this up and then we're gonna reseason it again,
All
and
right.
hopefully it'll keep. And I'll bring it inside the house for now. So if it's not too bad of a rusting job, we can just use steel wool,
Mm.
scrub it with hot water, soap. Otherwise, we can pour some vinegar
Ah,
in there. Supposed to let it sit for about 10 minutes. And then when you start to scrub, you can add bicarbonate soda
mm.
to increase the alkaline, acidic, sorry, levels. So we're going to do that. And then after I get it all nice and clean, get rid of the rust, then we'll go outside in the freezing cold and spark it up and go through the whole process again. Kind of like a repetition, sort of like the new presidency. It's like
Yo,
we've been here before.
Jesus.
It, it it sounds similar, but it seems very different.
Yeah, it it's worse this time. It's just got a
Oh,
longer list, you know. In the first administration, there was a whiteboard that Steve Bannon wrote all the things on, and this time, he got Trump got the Heritage Foundation to do the whiteboard stuff. So, and it is a whiteboard, as they say. So that's kind of what's happened. Big thing in the U.S. has been a an air crash disaster that happened curiously coincidental to Senate Senate hearings for Tulsi Gabbard, Bobby Kennedy Jr., and well, Cash Patel or Cash and Carry. So that's it's it is flooding the zone. There's a lot of zone flooding going on. That's uh, and the press is not handling it all that well. Although in the press conference, at least a couple of people sort of stood up and asked the question, um, well, what's the connection between diversity hires and this air disaster? Since Trump made this big deal that less smart people are in various government agencies because of DEI. That is, his whole business is that because he's a racist, anybody who's not white is not as smart, or that making diversity hires lowers the collective IQ. Well, um, the White House IQ is collectively lower as well, but the press asked, well, what's the connection? Do you really think that happened? Since unlike what we normally do with air disasters, is sort of wait a little while until we actually, well, get the bodies out of the water, whatever. But Trump claimed that he had common sense. That was the reason. That was his answer to the reporter who asked, well, what's sort of the connection? Well, common sense. I have common sense. Um, we're looking at another 4 years of the same stupidity. Just the blind opining. And then, stooges, lots of stooges. I don't think that there are any more stooges than before. All we have now is more revenge, trying to demote the former Joint Chiefs head. I mean, and they're just simple revenge things to, try and strip him of his military pension. Um, Trump is just a nice, vindictive guy. So that sort of is what's happening. All of these things are, pretty obnoxious, and I think a lot of folks are really. Some people are scared. Certainly, I think that there are other minority populations that are getting scared because of all of the, sort of idiocy that includes stripping away all these extra kind of holidays or commemorations, killing off for the federal government, Black History Month, etc. So, uh,
Oh, by the
every
way, Facebook apparently will still celebrate Black History,
oh well, how wonderful.
and they'll not accept the bullying and name calling among their staff anyway. Slurs, no slurs to be bandied about the office,
but
even if
but
it's rife on the network.
well, I just like the fact that Meta has removed tampons from the men's room. I mean,
And
how
additionally, the all hands meeting that Zuckerberg had, kind of state of the Facebook, he declined to take certain questions that were deemed complicated to answer or cause more trouble than they're worth, basically. But one of the questions he declined to answer from the staff was what he meant by uh, making a more masculine culture in
oh yes,
Facebook.
that's right. He did a whole thing on that. Well, it's projecting the CEO's whatever insecurities on the corporation. Very similar to Elon, because I'd forgotten that Elon essentially removed the FAA head, just because he was getting dinged for safety violations. And I'd forgotten that when that SpaceX rocket exploded, that it altered airplane routings, and fortunately nothing hit anything. But apparently, it altered literally a hemisphere's worth of plane flights of commercial
Mm.
aviation. So, which is what prompted the FAA to, induce fines or whatever. And Elon is above the FAA, and of course of course, we have an air accident right after that.
Apparently, there was a near miss at the same area 24 hours prior
Oh,
with
really?
another aircraft. I posted it to the Discord.
Learning curve problem. Well, apparently, and if you look at the tapes, it is a question of not maintaining proper separation. Um, and the maybe maybe the pilot in the helicopter saw the plane too late, but when you figure that the separation is something like 200 to 400 feet, that's not a lot of space when you consider,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
a landing approach. And if the plane dipped too low, which it could have, or the helicopter goes too high, it's just whatever.
All right, we look good, looking good. Time to go burn it. Start
Excellent.
all over again.
All righty. Has that sort of restaurant look to it. All right. Well, he's doing that. Remember the week since the last time I talked to you guys, Elon, made his little salute in front of an AfD crowd, the right wing German nativist party, and it caused other kinds of troubles. I think an Anglo-Catholic priest got kicked out of the church for doing the same thing at a pro-life conference of some kind. Um, it's all pretty wacky anyway. In other words, it was just interesting. There are these things that keep going on, and it'll happen, and then we'll sort of forget about it when we sort of realize that the same thing is going on all over the damn place. So that's happening. Uh, Elon said he was so impressed, or Caesar had been impressed with the Germans' tribes' ability to fight, and that they should not be guilty about World War II or World War I or the Franco-Prussian War. Well, anyway, um, big history there. Ethnic cleansing continues. We can look forward to, and it's just there's so much cluelessness about it. That is, Trump on Air Force One. Um, he just bloviates at any particular moment. He just makes all kinds of very weird comments that he's just quite clueless about some of this stuff. It's just sort of interesting to see how he just simply has gone back to the same old stead, except he's a little less on it. His attention span is a little shorter, and he's more willing to divert to profanity and other silliness. So that's kind of interesting. He's also put a lot of
Does
right wing
quite
press on the press corps.
hmm. Does the press seem to be a little less uh, confrontational? Like,
I think not. It's just a volume question. In other words, Trump does call on his stooges, at the sort of
mm,
front end of press conferences. If you watch enough of them, you realize that he has a certain pattern, and that he will pick out the right wing outlets for about half of the things, and then he's added all these right wing internet web outlets, like Daily Caller, etc. Um,
mm.
I'm not sure. I have to see if there's a master list of these things, but it was the same reason why they put Sputnik and RT, or they tried anyway, in his first term. that are simply propaganda outlets. So that's kind of going on there.
Oh, now you can see our blackening. It's happening much faster this time around.
Excellent.
So, and unlike the first time, since this doesn't come straight from the factory, we don't have the industrial oil and whatnot. We don't have to wash it with the soap afterwards. But we just need to heat it up so that the metal turns. Then we can season with oil afterwards. Let 'em- oh,
Yeah, sort of this is about coding. There was a thing this week about Trump um, whining about Air Force One and expecting and actually getting Musk involved in it as well. He has Musk out there yakking at Boeing, which sort of stupid. Essentially, what Trump wants to do is to change the paint job on Air Force One. I mean, he'd love to do it on the existing Air Force One, but they're supposed to deliver the new Air Force One soon. Um, Needless to say, he wants it painted with the same color and layout as his personal plane. So that's kind of he's going to try to make that a tradition. One wonders whether it'll last through whoever succeeds Trump. It's a really
oh,
boring
there's a
design
succession.
too. Well, it's not a design thing either. Well, and then yeah, some Republican congressperson decided that they would propose to allow Trump to run for a third term. So they're going to he put forward a legislation for that. It's a change in the rule, of course. It had never been challenged. I mean, it would be a first, certainly. Grover Cleveland had the 2 terms and then, whatever, didn't have a
Mm.
successive term. Um, and the only ones where you have that additional term are when somebody gets assassinated or something. So
Does that require an amendment to the Constitution?
no, I don't think. Well, yeah, maybe it does. No, I don't know. That's a good
Mm.
question. um I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does. All things considered, this is sort of in the aftermath of FDR's many terms in office. Anyway, needless to say, ethnic cleansing continues in Gaza. Uh, the ceasefire there's sort of a ceasefire, but not sort of a ceasefire, and it's just I guess there's going to be an expansion of war somewhere fairly soon to sort of negate everything that's happening. But they're trying to front end the return of hostages, and with the usual snags when they try and do it, etc. Um,
There's been over 56 children murdered this week in the West Bank,
it's just
and
it's insane.
apparently daily killings in Gaza, but uh, that hasn't seemed to have made it to the headlines.
War crimes trials can't come soon enough, but not happening. I put up a thing in Daily Coast on uh, environmental discourses and things that have happened after the fires in California. Trump decided that he would try to appear as though he were the agent of change, as it were, claiming in a one of his Truth Social postings that he had sent the military in to turn the spigot, to turn the taps on, which is untrue. Um, uh, 3 valves were offline for a couple of days, and they just happened to be returned to regular operating. And there were no military involved. In fact, some of the water people in California are asking questions about, or I think it's the Attorney General is asking, well, did you really send the military to do this? Or, are you just full of it? And apparently, Trump is full of it. Uh, an acting administrator for the FAA wasn't in place when the air crash occurred yesterday. So, there's all that going on. Uh, we're learning more about air traffic, I guess, considering it's been, 20 years since there's been a fairly major disaster. So that's actually a good thing relative to, doesn't mean that there haven't been disasters, but air disasters, but the minor or major air disasters is sort of interesting because they have this certain scale or volume to it. And, 14 ice skaters, youth ice skaters were killed in this air disaster. A woman who was going back to her job at Howard University, a Harvard law grad. She perished in this flight. All kinds of stuff. Terrible public interest stories that we see in this. And of course, what's interesting or useful is, what kind of oil do you use to season that, Joe?
I'm just using this is some mixture of corn and
Canola,
I can't think.
sunflower.
It's sunflower. Oil with a high burn point. And like last time, we're supposed to put aromatics like what do you call it? Scallions. We'll get rid
Green
of
onions.
the metallic taste. And you just use a thin layer of oil and then burn it off. Yes, was there a question in the audience?
Yeah, Joe, this is Jim. This reminded me of a restaurant in Marin called Marin Joe's. It was very high volume, very busy place with a pretty good reputation. And I like to sit at the bar and watch everyone work in the grill. It's entertainment for me. And they'd get through cooking up a pan of spinach or whatever, and they'd plate it, and then they would take quite a liberal amount of salt and just throw salt in the pan and take a rag and rough that salt around in there and clean the pan out, throw all the salt in the pan away, and then move right along.
Yeah,
real quick.
That's kind of what this does, the bamboo brush. It's very abrasive. But salt's a good idea. Cut the fat as well. Release some liquid. Cool. Speaking of air, Anne, there was an issue. I don't know if you were going to cover this, but got some astronauts stranded in space, apparently.
Oh, God. The reality is that they have things to do up there. It doesn't matter if they stay up there. And in fact, from a scheduling point of view, I understand that they can. It's not a big deal to get them back quickly, but apparently Trump and/or Musk are making a big deal out of it. But they need to come back. They're stranded. Blah blah blah. Typical issues of that is more about PR than it is about reality.
But conflict of interest there.
Well, gee, yeah. The Mars thing has come up again. Recall that this is the Trump's attempt to be like Kennedy. Get us to Mars by the end of his term. Whatever. It just spends money. I mean, $850,000 to transport 80 migrants. Not all of them are criminals, of course, it to back into Latin America. Uh, when normally they just put them on charter flights, and which is not very expensive, but it costs anywhere from 8 to 10 times the amount of money to do this, as though they're doing it for quasi-military reasons. So they're using military jets, um, cargo planes, and it's just I'm not sure people know about this. I think that the only reporting on it goes on only a very few major channels, and it's not clear that mainstream media is doing anything about that.
The
Uh,
reason being they're so dangerous.
oh
Using
yes, these are dangerous criminals who, if they got loose in the air, Trump made a reference to the Nicolas Cage movie Con Air. So appropriate. I mean, he's
lunatic.
they're going to seize them, and his references to movies are so, kind of banal. It's just crazy. Well, he likes media. I mean, a guy who's on, what was it, uh, the new Department of Transportation guy used to be on a program on MTV. So I guess it is the MTV generation, except that
Oh,
how many people watch
another
MTV?
another reality star.
Yes. I mean, it's not his only claim to fame, but it's barely that. Well, he's the one who said, well, our major function is not to have planes collide. That was his comment on the air disaster. That's not what we're supposed to do. It These people are such idiots. But anyway, so yes, we had that this past a week. There's the continuing of frightening behavior of the U.S. relative to attempting to buy or seize a bunch of things like the Panama Canal, Greenland, and then, of course, today the stock market dropped when Trump introduced or announced the tariffs going on Mexico and Canada, which doesn't hurt Mexico and Canada. It actually, it's going to raise prices. It's just, how shall we say it, insane. On the other hand, the war in Ukraine should have been over 24 hours after his inauguration. It's still going on, and it's going to still go on. And of course, Trump backtracked to say, well, it'll be 100 days or 6 months or something, um, something. And that's kind of what's going on. Although I think he's given his chief negotiator, Kellogg, former General Kellogg, to he's given him a deadline to try and work out a some sort of deal between, and of course the cluelessness of it is essentially the Trump plan is to demand that Ukraine essentially surrender, um, just give up. And of course, Ukraine says, well, you can go get whatever. Certain people told him what he could do with it, simply because that's just not the deal. It's always been, when Russia stops fighting, then the war is over. It's just pretty simple, actually. Let's see. Oh, Happy New Year, Year of the Snake. It is a snaky-like year. There weren't any major disasters other than the U.S. air disaster. The other disasters, national disasters occurring. There was an announcement that, since I did mention Ukraine, I can just mention a little bit about Ukraine, that there was an article mentioning how, which sort of copped to the fact that reaffirming what a previous article had done, which mentioned that Russia has been secretly or covertly sabotaging war industries throughout Europe, So you've had little fires and other things going on at a variety of war-related industries. Nothing like that's happened in the U.S., um, but there has been a pattern, and there's been some admissions that these things are happening. And let's see, the other new things occurred. The Project 2025 playbook, 5 things on the list of things that they were going to do have already been executed, relative to cutting programs or announcing cutbacks or whatever. 5 major deals have been already at least tried. And of course, lawsuits have arisen, and judges have stepped in to stop certain stupid things. It's just simply the whiteboard, whatever. It's the Steve Bannon whiteboard or the Steve Miller. I assume that Miller doesn't use a whiteboard. He probably just has a little spreadsheet of things that he wants to oppress, as it were. Sean Duffy is the name of the guy who is the new Department of Transportation head, replacing Pete Buttigieg, who they say is planning to run for a senator in Michigan. Gary Peters' retirement is retiring, I think, so that will be interesting. It's very clear. I mean, that even though Buttigieg is a Hoosier, his post White House, post Secretary of Transportation gig was probably always going to direct to some new kind of situation, and hopefully that's going to exist. I think it's wise. It's my understanding. Well, no, I don't know that. I can't announce that. Anyway, Sean Duffy said, obviously, it's not standard to have aircraft collide. I want to be clear on that. It just seems to me that a cabinet secretary shouldn't be talking like that, but whatever. Also, a Big Ten university college, the College of Communication Arts and Sciences at Michigan State, decided they'd cancel their Lunar New Year celebration because something DEI. And it's Michigan State, of course, is a state institution and not a federal institution, so DEI shouldn't apply at all. But they felt constrained or whatever. So that's kind of the busyness of the week as it's occurred. Our schedule is actually picking up. Susanna is returning to show a film. I don't know if she's here, but we're going to have this, I think, on at 7 o'clock on Saturday. So please tune in.
Time after time.
Yes,
H.G.
time
Wells.
It's an interesting and a good film. So that's going to exist. I know John is here. John, you want to talk about Twilight Zone?
Before John comes on, now, have you heard about the BRICS kerfuffle and Trump giving an ultimatum to the BRICS countries? He'll impose 100% tariffs if they don't promise not to go off the dollar or create their own currency or destabilize the dollar. So
empty threat. Oh, well, I would say
it can go into effect tomorrow.
Well, it is just more chaos creations. But there has been no kind of front end to a BRICS currency issue, although it's pretty clear that there is manipulation going on. Let's just put it that way, considering his sort of tariff mania. Threatening BRICS is going to be a problem, and if you add that, because BRICS, as because it includes Russia and China, it's going to be problematic. And for American construction, there still are chips from China, that is Taiwan, being used, and he's already threatened a tariff on Taiwan. So, considering that Taiwan is a large producer of chips, of computer chips, it's going to be an issue. Um, I don't think people are going to be happy with all of this.
I believe the factory, the TSCM factory in Arizona just recently opened. I don't think it's up to
No, there are
production levels.
several chip factories that are being planned and opening, but it is the long game ultimately. If the U.S. can sort of shift production in that particular way, and of course drive it with a variety of other things that would create demand, and that would also waste energy. You know, considering the short list of trying to re-promote fossil fuels and take away subsidies for electric vehicles, to pause an entire range of programs, and including was it charging stations for electric vehicles that the developments on that, and that cuts both ways, considering that Musk is trying to, I guess he already has. I don't have an electric car. So, but the Tesla, I think, has the preferred connector. That's my understanding. So there's a clearly a tied connection among these things. That's a lot of walks there you're walking with.
Number of different ones. Okay. Show you once again.
There we go.
Okay, let's see. You got my big one. I lugged this all the way from Cleveland in my suitcase, way across the world. Love this one, but after two dishes, 1.5 dishes, I can barely lift the pan. So I picked up that when I was down in Oslo. This was the rusty one earlier. Oh, the light
Looks good.
much better now. So that should be good. And this, I don't know if anybody's aware, you can get cast iron woks for induction tops or
Cool.
electric stoves, but this gauge is too thin. I'm not sure what the size of it is. And you can see that the heat, because you use such higher heat all the time, it warps the bottom.
Mm.
So I would recommend getting. Forgot. I got even yet another one. This is my indoor baby. Could use a- So this is maybe 1.5 times that size. So this one does not warp at all, the bottom.
Mm.
That might have to do with the smaller diameter as well. This
Yeah.
one, if you're getting an indoor wok that isn't a cast iron, be sure to get a thicker gauge. Otherwise, you're going to deal with warping, and then it's not going to connect with the heating element properly. But yeah, that's the wok central here, all sorted.
Indeed. Nice.
So if he was to do 100% tariff on what are these 8 or 12 countries, is it now?
Yeah,
Or
the
that
issue, of course, is it's a kind of empty threat in some ways, because when you start, it depends on the timing relative to the supply chain, and it has a longer kind of. It's not something that you can see that you're going to get big changes immediately, but there will be, of course, increases in prices, and it just amazes one that Trump supporters can't see that. Somehow they always think that their faith in Mango Mussolini is going to be rewarded. I don't think it is. I mean, considering that he threatened Colombia, and which would have, had he actually threatened Colombia and actually implemented tariffs on Colombia because of their resistance to the U.S. sending military planes to bring migrants back to Colombia, because of the trade relationship between Colombia and the U.S., everyone's coffee prices might have gone up.
Mm.
Unless they figured out how to grow coffee beans in the U.S., which doesn't seem possible.
Not quite yet.
Genetic engineering. Anyway,
Oh, do we have any questions?
questions,
before we
comments?
head out the
John?
door.
John? What's that on Twilight Zone tonight? Oh, I don't know. John's not there.
We're scraping the barrel of the episodes, I believe.
Yes. John's not here, man.
Dude.
Dude, John. I guess not.
Well, on that note,
On that note, we're going to try and do better next week.
see y'all.
We'll see you next week.